Welcome, my friends. Today, I want you to travel with me. Not to another country, to another time. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine this. You are standing in a desert. It is early morning, so early that the sun has not yet risen. The sand under your feet is cool and quiet. The air smells dry, ancient, like dust that has not moved in centuries. There is no sound, no wind, no voice, just silence. Then the eastern sky begins to change. A thin gold line appears along the edge of the world. The darkness pulls back slowly, and as the first light reaches the ground, you see it, a shape, rising from the desert floor. Enormous, silent, sharp against the sky. A pyramid. It has been standing here for more than 4,500 years. Kingdoms have fallen. Languages have disappeared. Rivers have changed direction. But this thing made of stone, it is still here. Why? Why did ancient Egyptians build mountains of stone that seemed to touch the sky? Was it only about power? Was it only about death? Or was it something deeper? Something about the human need to say, I was here. Remember me. This is not only a story about construction. This is a story about a river that made life possible. A belief that made death bearable. Workers whose names disappeared but whose efforts survived. And a dream so heavy it had to be carved from stone. One idea will follow us through every chapter today. Stone remembers. This is the story of the pyramids of Egypt, the stones that touched the sky. Chapter 1. The river that made the stones possible. The pyramids did not begin in the desert. They began beside a river. The Nile is one of the longest rivers in the world. It flows north through the land of Egypt and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. And for thousands of years, it did something remarkable. Every year, the Nile flooded. The river rose from its banks. Water covered the low farmland along its edges, and when the water pulled back, it left behind a gift-rich, dark soil. Fertile soil. Soil full of life. This changed everything. Because the Nile flooded, the land became fertile. Because the land was fertile, farmers could grow wheat and barley. Because there was food, the kingdom could feed thousands of people who were not farming. And because those people could be fed and organized, Egypt could build. Follow the Nile, and you follow the beginning of the pyramids. Imagine a farmer standing near the riverbank at sunrise. The water is rising slowly. It touches the edge of his field. He watches carefully. He knows the flood can destroy it, can wash away fences, drown animals, ruin a season. But he also knows it brings life. Without this water, the soil turns to dust. His harvest will feed his family, but it will also feed workers far away in the desert, people he will never meet, building something he will never see. The word harvest means the time when crops are collected from the field, and the word fertile means rich enough to grow things. These two words built ancient Egypt. No grain, no bread, no bread, no workers. No workers, no pyramid. The pyramid begins here, not at the desert, but beside the river. Not with a king's command, but with a farmer's harvest. Stone remembers where it came from. The river made life possible. Food made labor possible, and labor made building possible. But if the Nile gave Egypt the power to build, what gave Egypt the reason? The answer begins with a question that every civilization has asked. What happens after we die? Chapter 2. The first stairway to the sky. For centuries, Egyptian kings were buried in low, flat structures made from mud brick. These early tombs were called mastabas, solid, simple, and close to the ground. A king was placed inside. The tomb was sealed, and the desert covered everything. Then, Around 2700 BCE, something changed, and it began with one man's imagination. Pharaoh Djoser ruled during the Third Dynasty. His chief official was a man named Imhotep, an architect, a healer, a planner, and one of the most brilliant minds in ancient Egyptian history. Imhotep looked at the flat mastaba and imagined something no one had tried before. What if stone could rise? He placed one stone platform on top of another, then another on top of that, then another. Layer after layer, the structure grew upward. Each level was smaller than the one below. The result was the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, one of the oldest large stone buildings in the world. This was a risk. Nobody had built anything like this before. Stone is heavy. Stone can crack. Stone can collapse. Every layer added pressure, weight, and danger. If the design failed, the entire structure could fall. But it did not fall. The Step Pyramid rose from the desert like a giant stairway. And that shape carried deep meaning. In Egyptian belief, the pharaoh's spirit needed to travel to the afterlife, a place of eternal life among the gods. The steps may have represented a stairway the king could climb toward the sky, toward the stars, toward eternity. The word afterlife means life after death. The word tomb means a place where a body is placed after death. For the ancient Egyptians, preparing for the afterlife was one of the most sacred duties. Imagine a craftsman standing at Saqqara, looking up. He sees something that has never existed before. The desert is no longer flat. A tomb is no longer hidden beneath the earth. Stone is reaching toward heaven. The phrase, "reach for the sky," means to try something ambitious, something so big it feels almost impossible. Imhotep reached for the sky, and the stone followed. Stone remembers the first step. The Step Pyramid proved something powerful. Stone could rise. A tomb could touch the sky. Belief could become architecture. But Egypt did not stop there. The dream grew higher. The ambition grew bolder. And before Egypt could build the greatest pyramid the world had ever seen, it had to learn something difficult first. It had to learn how to fail. Chapter 3. The Pharaoh who wanted a mountain of stone. Before the Great Pyramid, there was failure. Pharaoh Sneferu ruled during the Fourth Dynasty, around 2600 BCE. He was Khufu's father, and he was obsessed with building the perfect pyramid. Sneferu tried, and the desert taught him hard lessons. His first major attempt was at a place called Maidum. The pyramid there may have partially collapsed. Its outer layers fell away, leaving a strange tower-shaped ruin that still stands today. Something went wrong with the angle, the weight, or the structure. Sneferu tried again. At Dashur, his builders began a new pyramid at a steep, ambitious angle, but partway up, cracks appeared. The weight became too much. The builders had to change the angle in the middle of construction, making the top half less steep than the bottom. Today, we call it the bent pyramid, because its shape bends visibly halfway up. A bent pyramid, a visible mistake, frozen in stone for thousands of years. But Sneferu did not stop. He tried a third time. The red pyramid at Dashur, built carefully, at a safer angle, with lessons from every previous failure, became the first true smooth-sided pyramid in history. Egypt tried. Egypt failed. Egypt adjusted. Egypt tried again. Then Khufu inherited the dream and the lessons. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built for Pharaoh Khufu during the Fourth Dynasty. It rose to nearly 146 meters. Many of its blocks weighed more than 2 tons, as heavy as a small car or more. Millions of blocks, cut, shaped, transported, and placed with extraordinary precision. This was not luck. It was not magic. It was the result of generations of trial, error, correction, and learning. Every failure Sneferu endured became knowledge that Khufu's builders carried forward. A pharaoh was not only a political ruler. In Egyptian belief, the pharaoh was connected to divine order, a bridge between the human world and the gods. The Great Pyramid was not only a tomb, it was a statement. Royal power, religious belief, and national organization, all made permanent in stone. Imagine a royal official standing on the Giza plateau. Workers are moving. Scribes are recording. Stone blocks are arriving in long rows. The pyramid is still unfinished. But already, it is changing the horizon. The official looks up and understands. This is not only a building. This is a king turning power into stone. This is a failed dream finally perfected. The phrase, "stand the test of time," means to survive across many centuries. The Great Pyramid has stood that test for more than 4,500 years. Stone remembers every failure that made it possible. But a pharaoh's dream cannot lift a single stone. A king may command. A scribe may record. An official may plan. But who really touched the stones? Chapter 4. The hands that moved the stones. When many people imagine the building of the pyramids, they imagine enslaved people in chains, forced to work under whips. For a long time, that was the common story. But current evidence tells us something different, and something more human. Archaeologists have discovered workers' villages near Giza. They found remains of organized food supplies: bread, dried fish, beef, and beer. They found evidence of medical care, healed bones, treated injuries. They found sleeping quarters, bakeries, breweries, and administrative records. In 2013, a collection of ancient papyrus records was found at Wadi al-Jarf, near the Red Sea. These records, connected to an official named Merer, describe the transport of limestone blocks to Giza by boat. Real records. Real names. Real logistics. The pyramids were built by organized workers, skilled laborers, rotating crews, specialists, support communities, and scribes who recorded everything. Now, forget the millions of blocks for a moment. Think about just one single limestone block. It weighs more than 2,000 kilograms. It must be cut from the quarry wall using copper tools. It must be shaped. It must be loaded onto a wooden sled. It must be pulled across wet sand water poured ahead to reduce friction. It must be lifted, positioned, placed precisely against the block beside it. One block, one team, one long, exhausting effort. Imagine one worker. He grips a thick rope. His hands are rough and cracked. His feet press into wet sand. Around him, 20 other workers pull together. The sled moves slowly, a few inches at a time. The sun is fierce. The dust sticks to their skin. Behind them, a scribe sits and records the day's progress. Nearby, a baker pulls bread from a clay oven. A brewer prepares beer not for celebration, but for daily energy. These are rations. This is a system. Somewhere in the workers' village, a man with a broken wrist waits for care. His bone has been set. He will heal. He will return to work. The word quarry means a place where stone is cut from the earth. The word scribe means a person who writes and keeps official records. And the word ration means a measured amount of food given to workers. History often remembers the king's name, but stone remembers the hands. This worker will never be famous. No statue will carry his face. No temple will hold his name. But his effort his grip on that rope, his steps through that sand became part of something that has lasted 4,500 years. The phrase, separate fact from myth, means to find the truth behind a popular story. The truth about the pyramid builders is not a story of chains. It is a story of bread, beer, copper tools, teamwork, and human effort. Ordinary hands, extraordinary monument. Stone remembers every hand that touched it. The workers lifted the stones. The scribes recorded the labor. The bakers fed the crews. The officials organized the system. The pharaoh commanded the dream. But if the king wanted eternity, why do we remember the workers? Because the pyramids were built for death, but they became something the builders never expected. They became memory for the living. Chapter 5. The monument that outlived the kings. Inside the Great Pyramid, narrow passages lead downward and upward through the stone. The air is still. The walls are close. The silence is heavy. These spaces were not built for the living. They were built for the dead. A chamber is a room in this case, a room inside the pyramid. The king's chamber sits deep within the structure, lined with massive granite blocks. This is where the pharaoh's body was meant to rest for eternity. For ancient Egyptians, death was not an ending. It was a departure. The body had to be preserved. The tomb had to be sealed. Offerings had to be made. Prayers had to be spoken. The king's spirit needed everything it would need for the journey ahead. The pyramid's shape pointed upward. Some passages have been studied for possible connections to stars and sky symbolism. The relationship between the pyramid and the heavens was part of a deep belief system connecting kingship, death, rebirth, and the cosmos. But here is the strange and powerful truth of the pyramids. The pharaohs built them for themselves. They built them for their own immortality. They wanted their names to echo through eternity, and yet the pyramids have become bigger than the kings who built them. Most visitors to Giza do not think about Khufu's political power. They think about the stone. They think about the age. They think about the human effort. They feel small. They feel curious. They feel amazed. The pyramids were built for death, but they became monuments to human memory. And the real story does not need aliens. It does not need lost civilizations or supernatural explanations. It needs the Nile. It needs food. It needs copper tools, wooden sleds, wet sand, planning, scribes, workers, belief, and time. The human story is already powerful enough. Modern archaeologists understand this. They brush sand from old surfaces slowly. They examine tool marks, worker graffiti scratched into hidden stones, supply records written on papyrus, and evidence buried beneath centuries of dust. Each discovery makes the human story clearer and more extraordinary. Imagine a modern traveler standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramid. The stone is silent. The desert wind moves gently. They look up and feel the weight of time pressing down 45 centuries of memory held in place by stone. Then, nearby, an archaeologist kneels in the sand. She brushes dust from a small buried object carefully, patiently. The past is not gone. It has been waiting. The kings wanted eternity. They received it, but not in the way they imagined. Their tombs became the world's memory. Their monument outlived their names. Although the kings are gone, the pyramids remain. They were built for death, but they are remembered by the living. Stone remembers. Final reflection. So why do the pyramids still matter? Not because every mystery is solved. Not because every stone has spoken. Not because we understand every detail of how they were built. They matter because they show us what human beings can create when belief, labor, and memory come together. The pyramids were built for kings, but they were raised by workers. They were shaped by the Nile. They were guided by belief. They were tested by failure. And they were carried stone by ordinary hands. The kings are gone. The workers are gone. The old world is gone. But the stones remain. They were built for death, but they became memory for the living. Stone remembers. And after 4,000 years, the pyramids still ask us one quiet question. What do we build when we want to be remembered? Thank you for watching. Thank you for learning. And tell me, my friends, when you look at the pyramids, what do you think they remember? Share your answer. I will be reading.